Welcome back to Hoops HD, everybody. We are into the 2020-2021 season, believe it or not. We are recording this here Monday night, November 30th, around a little before 9:30 p.m. I'm your host, Chad Sherwood, joined up top here by Joby Fortson and David Griggs.
Yes, I got to say this. This is presidential Joby. I just now noticed flag behind it. President.
Salute the flag.
Yeah.
Yes. We've got John Titel below us. Both on his side, we've got Rocco Miller from Bracketeer.org and John Stalica with us. So half dozen of us here tonight to go over all the excitement of games that have happened. And we're going to attempt during the course of the show to preview the next week's worth of games. Although, as we all know already from this season, anything on the schedule can get canceled at a moment's notice. And new games can be thrown in there like crazy. So we'll take all our previews with a great assault, I think, tonight.
Yeah.
But I guess we should start with that. Let's go ahead and pull up some standings here, and we're going to start talking about all these games that happened over the course of this first week. And, Dave, you want to fill for a second here while I try to figure out how to get this to work?
Yes, Chad is trying to get all this to work. You know, we've only been doing this for about 6 years. So, I mean, again, it just takes him a minute sometimes to remember how to do this. It looks like he's finally got it. Good job, Chad. Actually, we got – right now that's a black screen, Chad. That's a very nice black screen we have there, Chad. Oh, there we go.
Great, great. Let's start here.
All right. Do we have it up? We have ACC standings.
Yes.
Okay. There we go. Okay. Just actually, before we get into the actual games that are played, for those of you that are new to the podcast, give a quick statement of what you're looking at on the screen here. We've got the ACC standings. The conference record obviously is meaningless at this point. We've got teams' overall record in this column. Net ratings are not yet out. When they come out, we'll be able to show them there. RPI is the old NCAA RPI formula. We are still – our good friend Warren Nolan from warrennolan.com calculates it, so we still show that. We've got strength of schedule. We've got 6 different metrics here, 3 resume-based metrics, which include, Joby, your J&G ratings, which we're going to start releasing on a daily basis fairly soon, if I'm correct, right?
Yeah, we're trying to get more games connected. Obviously, a few of those ratings are not spot on, particularly my alma maters at 5.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think these are still the preseason J&G ratings up here on the screen.
Yeah, and are you waiting for everybody to play a game, Joby? Is that what?
Because the Patriot won't play till January.
Okay, yeah, okay.
I am, not to bore you, I'm doing some programming. That's what's taking a while to adjust in a day. I'm doing some programming so that teams, as they come in, will join the ratings, which is for now, what you'll see is a team that hasn't played, like a Florida State, for instance, looking at the ACC. Florida State will be looked at as below everybody else until they play.
Okay.
And that means like a Yale will be permanently down at the very bottom.
Well, yeah, because they're not playing at all.
The next 3, the predictive metrics there, that's the Ken Palm rating of Palm, BPI from ESPN, SAG is the SAG ratings. We got offensive and defensive rating and tempo ratings from Ken Palm. We also have the AP and the coaches poll numbers. Just as a quick note, there was no coaches poll this week, so those are still the preseason coaches poll numbers. The AP poll numbers are the ones that were released earlier today, though.
No, those are not updated, Chad.
No, those are not updated, really. That looks like
I would love to still be 4th.
You are correct. I thought that we had them updated. We do not have the updated AP numbers. So these are all the preseason numbers. David, we got to start the show over again. Okay. On that note, though, so ignore those. They're a little bit out of date. But you also see the past week's results here. The games in blue are wins by the conference, and the games in red are the losses by the conference. And I'm going to start with Friday, Joby, because we got to get this when we start there right now with your team, the Virginia Cavaliers. Had a little problem in Bubbleville against San Francisco.
Yeah, it was very reminiscent of a game against American East team in the first round, to be honest, the way it played out during the game, because Virginia ran out to a nice 9-2 lead to start, looking good, but then they went a remarkable 1 for 15 in a stretch. And when you're Virginia with their pace, 1 for 15 lasts a very long time. And thus they came back in, but you go, okay, it's tied essentially at half. But that's the way it was at UMBC. And then they give up 40 in the second half. and give San Francisco all the credit. They got a little hot. They shot over the defense, and Virginia was trying to play with the rotation a little bit too much. So there were a lot of wasted possessions with players who probably won't be playing down the stretch. But needless to say, the end result did not turn out well for Virginia. The game before showed what Virginia is capable of with their two transfers with Murphy and Hauser just lighting it up. But that is a perfect example. If you are not on your game, a good, not great, but good San Francisco team is still going to be able to beat a Virginia team when the defense isn't quite here and they go through a spell of not scoring.
Well, that was what Virginia did. Rocco, let me bring you in here and talk about the good news from the ACC. Was another team from the state of Virginia who had a great week. Virginia Tech, huge win over Villanova there on Saturday, along with the win over South Florida. They followed up with that on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, Virginia Tech, opened up with Radford on opening night, actually, and actually struggled. I think for the first half it was tied and, pulled away late in that one to win by 15, but it was a lot less than impressive. And Radford came into the year into the 300s in KenPom, despite winning the Big South. They lost a lot of players. So going into the Villanova game, which, by the way, was scheduled overnight on Thursday night between head coach Mike Young and Jay Wright, just worked it out over the phone 48 hours in advance. I didn't give much thought to the actual game. I just figured, hey, this is great. They're going to get together. Villanova's going to get a third win. We'll talk about them in a minute. But sure enough, Virginia Tech was ready to play, and they battled them right from the opening tip. Had an amazing sequence at the end where they were trying to miss a free throw and it went in, and then ultimately Villanova sent the game to overtime. But wow, Virginia Tech just kept answering the bell. There was so many times where you thought, okay, Villanova's going to win, and Virginia Tech just kept showing up. This team looks really tough. I probably picked them too low. I had them 10th in the ACC preseason. I did pick them as the dark horse, but I didn't think they were this good. They're top 25 team, I'm sure now.
They came in at number 16 today in the poll that we do not see there on the screen, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, they're 20 in KenPom, so they'll be there with them. So that's boding well for the Hokies. They get a light week with just VMI this week. So they're ready to take all the belt.
Okay, go ahead. I was just going to say, you brought up a good point there, Rocco. It was more or less the toughness. I would have been really impressed with them even had they, like when it got to overtime, I'm like, can they absorb yet another punch to the face? Because it looked like they had the game wrapped up, and then all the momentum going to Villanova in the overtime. But I was just impressed with the toughness. Having said that, I'm kind of reminded of what they did last November. They had some really big wins then too. Yeah, are they going to be able to sustain this and build on this year? Because last year they did kind of slip up. But anyway,
I want to go into Titel. Let me mention that had a pretty good week. Maybe not as much in the national headlines, but Clemson wins Mississippi State and Purdue to their 4-team event.
That would be double-digit wins over those two Power 5 teams. It certainly helps when those guys, you're going 45% combined the free throw line. I really thought senior power forward Amir Sims was going to be the man this year. Very slow start, only 8 minutes in the opener and fell out. Bounced back in second game, 24.4 assists. They had 13 steals and 4 turnovers to take care of business. And one of my favorites tonight, since the start of November, Clemson basketball 2-0, Clemson football 1-1.
There we go. I'm here on the bad side of the AC. Georgia Tech 0-2. Georgia State and Mercer.
Leo Vecchio's Georgia Tech team.
And a nasty home loss to St. Francis, Pennsylvania.
I'm not surprised necessarily that they lost because St. Francis of PA, or STFU as we occasionally like to call them, they've been kind of a decent team by Northeast standards, but still walking into the Oakland Zoo. Are they ever going to resurrect the Pitt program? I think with Tech you're going to have bigger problems here because, yes, Georgia State is certainly going to be an NCAA contender, but they haven't been saying that much about Mercer, though.
Mercer beat Georgia State in a very under the radar game, but so good start for the season, Mercer. But we'll talk about the Wednesday night under the radar. David, this week's about a second. Things are a little but there it is. And there, coming up Tuesday, also North Carolina versus Texas, I believe. No, I'm sorry, North Carolina versus the winner of Stanford Alabama game in the Maui Invitational semifinals. Not yet on the screen there, but that game will be up there, as well as Michigan State Duke, Western Kentucky. It's pretty good games that are at least technically on the single half of the week.
Yeah, this Western Kentucky team, they went out, they won 2 big games, and then they actually battled West Virginia. Had, I want to say, on about midway through the second half. So Louisville, like, I don't think those two are familiar with each other, but they're not just going to sleepwop through that.
They got Greensboro at home lately.
Yeah, again, if it holds up, all the teams sort of can't be on Louisville right now, but. But then again, in like Michigan State did a really good showcase game. Duke really kind of, I mean, they had the one game against Coppin State. You had mentioned Coppin State totally took him crazy out of that game. I mean, there was just no energy at all. Not the most impressive showing first game of the year for Duke in that one. If you're going to have to play a little better than that against Michigan State, Coppin State is awful, in case you were wondering.
Sleek circling Rhode Island at Boston College, another game, I guess. Who knows?
Gonna be a rematch.
I'll tell you, a team
I think they got rid of that, actually.
A team we didn't talk about it had a good first week was NC State. And NC State versus UConn. UConn is a tournament-level team. NC State's mentioned, though, is probably out in most bracketology, but they're in the running, so that high NIT type team. This will be a big game for NC State's season. If they can get that win, then all of a sudden they're squarely in most people's fields at this early stage, and then it's about just maintaining it the rest of the year. And it'll be better than any team they've played in about a decade out of it.
Let's get over to the Big Ten here. And just go up here a second. I tell after recording this, we are watching Minnesota play Loyola Marymount. It's funny to see on the scoreboards. Right? That's actually Saturday. Playing right now, though.
The matchups so nice playing it twice. Yes, we're off to a good 2-0 start, double-digit wins over Green Bay, and so far only one of MU. We'll see in a couple hours. Junior point guard Marcus Carr playing like an All-American, over 31 a game, 6 assists a game, he's doing it all. And transfer Booth Minnesota, 15 points, 5 assists, 2 steals a game. Sadly, one of the everybody, the leading freshman scorer they go first, Jamal Ashburn Jr.
Wow. Rocco, though, when you look at the Big Ten overall, only 2 losses so far in the entire season. Nebraska's lost to Nevada, Purdue's lost to Clemson that we mentioned already.
Yeah, good start to the season, but we've noticed that the Big Ten was not part of anything in Bubbleville. Part of most of the crossover classic or not part of last state withdrew. The Big Tens are on the way. We're going to see a series this week between Illinois and Indiana and Maui and Michigan State. But I do want to say that that Illinois versus Ohio game was unbelievable. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And Michigan had a major scare versus Oakland last night.
A really weak Oakland team, too.
Oakland team got pounded by Xavier earlier this year.
Yeah.
I pounded by Xavier and also 2 other teams in that multi-team event.
Yeah.
That's right.
I mean, we've got Joe. We've got the Michigan State Duke game obviously tomorrow night. We got the Illinois Baylor, like Rocco mentioned. If it happens, we've got Wisconsin Marquette coming up on Friday. Who knows? So Seton Hall, Penn State on Sunday, maybe even.
Yeah, no, the Michigan State Duke is, and we touched on a little bit. Michigan State's win over Notre Dame was a nice, solid win to get Izzo's folks. Given the turnover, you lose Jameis Winston. Will you hit ground running? Notre Dame's not the top of the ACC, but it's a quality program just the same. We're going to see a lot more on this, because while Duke doesn't have the season experience, they have the talent. We'll see and they think that they will. And if they can, as David pointed out, as long as they can overcome the Cameron Crazy league, just absolutely ghost-like.
Yeah, it's going to be rough.
I got to go to you because they slapped on the screen there, yet they pulled out overtime win tonight over Eastern Kentucky. Barely. They barely beat Bradley. They barely beat Toledo.
They're sitting them down.
Over now, actually. They should be updated.
I could argue they're already in mid-season form even after that blowout win against Oakland back Wednesday. But
proving Oakland sucks.
I actually trailed most of the game against Toledo and Bradley. It was a game they probably should have lost, but the Braves actually missed the front end of a 1-1 to preserve a 1-point victory for the Musketeers. They managed to pull a couple wins out of their rear ends.
Yeah, the game we talked about the ACC, but 1-point win for Louisville. Tough loss for Seton Hall.
Tough loss for Seton Hall, but I do think it was a good sign. It's their season opening game. I got to play it on Louisville's home court, albeit no fans. Still the travel and everything associated with it. I think most people would agree that Louisville is probably a little higher coming into the season. At least I had them there. So the fact that Seton Hall was right there toe-to-toe with them down to the last minute was, I think, bodes well for the season. Seton Hall also just getting underway with Iona tonight. That's pretty interesting. Matchup 12 Patino's first game. But yeah, I think we'll learn a lot about the Pirates coming up this week. After Iona tonight, they go to Rhode Island on Wednesday and quickly get on a plane to go to Omaha, Nebraska to face Oregon on Friday. and then they're going to turn around and go to State College, Pennsylvania on Sunday and play Penn State. What a week for the Pirates.
Title, all not on the screen here, but we just saw earlier tonight St. John's attempt to lose a game to Boston College that they had well in hand, failed to do so, so they did pick up the win. The Johnnies are now 3-0.
This could be the ugliest 3-0 team in America. They beat St. Peter's at home by 1. They took care of business against LaSalle, and they had struggled after being up 20 early to BC and Boulder. BYU on Wednesday. Good luck.
What about Xavier? I mean, that's a pretty ugly point.
True. It helps. They're not going to 81% as a team, and they're doing it a couple different guys. Posh Alexander, their freshman point guard, great on both ends of the court. 14 points a game on offense, 3 steals per game on defense, which is very big because Sheen Dunn, their normal point guard, still out due to an injury. And they bring a 2-time junior college All-American, Vince Cole, instant 15 points a game, has not missed a throw yet.
Do you want to mention Villanova a little bit here? We discussed the loss to Vivat, but let's over everything before that.
Yeah, Villanova's full. Villanova beat ASU, who is a tournament team and a challenger for the Pac-12 title if all the preseason prognosis come into play. They solidly they beat BC, and it was more than a 9-point game. But
They dropped to number 12 of the nation in the poll. So it's not a big drop.
Or they lost to Virginia Tech, as we discussed. I'm still a believer in Villanova is what it comes.
Oh, I am too.
And, hey, you lose Major has 5.6 out foot. I mean, better expected. I'm not going to say the worst than we expected. Talk to me in a month. If they rack up a few more losses, then maybe I'll get there. But they're so loaded. They might not, what they proved with the Virginia Tech loss, it might be a 3 that is distancing themselves from Virginia college basketball. Might be just the top 2. But they are still at the top of the heap of that next group.
Chad, real quick, let's go back to Boston College St. John's and let you talk about something that happened in that game that I think was utterly ridiculous.
Everyone that's followed our podcast for a while has known two of my favorite things are replay and timeouts. And we had a 5-minute replay to figure out how many timeouts St. John's had left. It was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful.
St. John's did not. They should have had the forfeit at that moment.
But anyhow, here's the upcoming games. I can already tell you can cross some of these games off. For example, the UConn Vanderbilt is off. Xavier is circling Temple Villanova. I don't know if it's on or not. St. John's Texas Tech is a pretty interesting game here Thursday night for.
A couple updates.
Yeah,
Chad, a couple updates on that. So UConn play USC for sure on Thursday, and now St. John's is not going to play Texas Tech. They're actually going to stay and play BYU on Wednesday.
Okay, there was a St. John's Texas Tech on. It's 2020. We just how about Villanova Texas on Sunday? Is that on, Rocco?
As far as I know.
That's going to be a good one.
We've already had 2 baseball games canceled out, and I won't be surprised if there's more.
Also, at Congress to wipe out the holy war between St. Joe's and Nova.
Yeah.
But no, St. Joe's went into COVID lockdown, so that game is most likely off. Might be rescheduled, but that game's not going to happen this week.
Yeah, Villanova's going to play. Oh, you got the.
It's our hero schedule. Updates here. Who knows?
Something to talk about was the Providence-Indiana game. Providence real disappointing. Indiana real impressive. We'll see what they do in the rest of the way out in Nashville.
Yeah,
and that's the worst Saturday night.
Indiana will be playing, I guess, Texas next, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
Well, too.
The 10 goes next to Bill Walton out there.
That'd be,
Well, we want to talk about that. Well, there's Texas's winner, Davidson, 2-point win earlier today. Let me start with you in the Big 12. I think you want to talk a little bit about that team, actually, the ineligible team as of the moment, and Cade Cunningham.
Better talk about it now because we're not going to be talking about it in months. I agree. Started 2-0 after a road win at Arlington and a 20-point win over Texas Southern. It helps that the team can't shoot 18% combined from behind the arc. We all know the freshman Cade Cunningham is advertised 20.7 boards a game. The freshman I didn't know about is Matthew Alexander Moncrief. Ironically, not even the best Canadian basketball player in the state of Oklahoma in his own family. His cousin Shea Gilgeous-Alexander plays for the Thunder. Schedule-wise, they travel to Marquette tomorrow. Good luck with that. Then they have a pair of home cupcakes. So if they can get by Marquette, the team could be top 25.
I want to add a team that does look really good so far, Rocco, and I know you being a Washington fan may not want to discuss them, but Baylor, and absolutely rolled.
Yeah, Baylor, I mean, with Mitchell and Teague and those guys, I mean, unbelievably tough guards that are experienced, that played together, and that's what the Huskies ran into real quickly out there. Their game against Lafayette before Louisiana, same thing, a little bit faster pace in that game, but guards dominated. They didn't really have to sweat in either game. So what I learned about Baylor is if it's inferior competition, they are going to pound them and not those teams hang around, which is a sign of a great team. But I'm very curious with their crazy big week ahead, how they handle those tight moments, because I think it's coming this week.
Yeah, they're going to get some real tests. David, actually, Joe, let's go to you here for Texas Tech.
Hey.
David, I'll go to you next. But Texas Tech, I was, almost shocked the way they were not there in the Houston game. It wasn't close as the final, I think.
No, it wasn't. I would like to think, especially since Houston had brought the defense, and they were in the defense. as I said on our preview podcast, the American, they passed Cincinnati, for the best defenses in that conference. But I was scratching my head because I actually thought Texas Tech would actually win that game. Because of Beard, and they actually have the talent to be able to continue with Houston. But Houston seemed to brush them off with not much of a problem, just shut them down, which you've seen. And it was like you said, Chad, it seemed like there was almost a lack of fire from Texas Tech. They were ready for the game, and that's unusual. And that's a red flag. It might have been a one-off. There's always one-offs. We've seen already a bunch of what I suspect are one-offs. But if it's not a one-off, Texas Tech could be not that protected seed talking about, but be in much deeper trouble. That sort of performance will not do well in the Big 12, especially, as John Titel pointed out, a team like Oklahoma State, which we were not thinking would be at least, they've got the gambit for now, but that level, that's yet another situation where I get 2 losses that you weren't expecting at the beginning of the year. It's a danger sign, without a doubt.
David, we're going to get back to this in a little bit, get to talk about Gonzaga, but I want to talk about the team. There ends up being, if you look at our in-season tournament out there, I think about 5 season events that actually are getting played out. I think we started with 8, and we lost 3 of them, but one of them was won by West Virginia, who looked real good up in South Dakota.
They did, and they beat 3 really good teams. I know that some of the name recognition, if you're not really used to following the under-the-radar teams, Western Kentucky, South Dakota State, might not be all that exciting, but they really did go out there and beat 3 really good teams and looked really good doing it. They did it away from home. They did it under crazy circumstances. With the exception of Baylor, I think West Virginia's competition was probably a lot better than what Baylor's played so far. But, with the exception of Baylor, I thought they've looked as good as anybody in the league so far.
I think I got to agree with you there. And speaking of the here in the Big 12, which should be the screen sound does again. Who knows if these games will be played? Although we look real good for having the Kansas Kentucky game tomorrow night, and the West Virginia Gonzaga game, I believe, on Wednesdays ago.
Oh, that's going to be good.
That's going to be one of the showcase games, and we're going to keep an eye on Texas, who I think is playing Indiana in the Maui Invitational, sponsored by.
Yes, that game's not on the screen, but it is going to be Texas and Indiana tomorrow afternoon. Yes.
Yes, the Maui Invitational, which is in Asheville.
Yes.
I love saying that. The Maui Invitational.
A couple other games to note there is Villanova Texas game, which I think not on, right? I think
if it comes off this Baylor Illinois, I talked about it. This is a 1-seed game. This is the type of game that if you win, when you're handing out 1 seed and you have a win like this, a win away from home, it's a neutral floor against another team that's also vying for 1 seed, looks pretty damn good.
Same with that game on Saturday, by the way. I think those 2 teams might be.
Oh yes, this Oklahoma State game. Yes.
I thought you were talking about Thursday's Watford. Let's talk about now and Gonzaga, who picked up it's so good against the Jayhawks on Thursday night.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They got out and some running and didn't stop. Kansas didn't have any solutions to slow down Gonzaga. Jalen Suggs, oh, my goodness. This guy was a blue-chip quarterback coming out of high school and also a pretty darn point guard, as Kansas found out. I think he only had 1 turnover the whole game, dished out 8 assists, 25 or so. Kispert in 24, Timmy poured in 20-something. With for the team, it brings Gonzaga to a level that I don't see really out of many teams in the country. He keeps them focused. He's got a very high basketball IQ. They never beat themselves, and that's what makes this team so hard to beat. They're almost flawless motion offense with the ball. Now with the running element, then you got Nemben coming in Florida off the bench to go along with Suggs. The embarrassment of riches on this roster is a little bit tough for a Washington Husky fan to swallow, but it is beautiful basketball.
Let's tell. BYU out to a 3-0 start. Not that they actually played any of note yet, I think.
It is a Kixie with 3 wins in 4 days. I'll get each 20+ points. The schedule is going to get considerably harder on 5 straight games. They go to the USC and St. John's back-to-back in Bubbleville. They go to Utah State, and they host Utah, and they go to San Diego State. Very tough December for them. The good news, they don't play the Zags until February, which means they better pile up as many wins as they can afford them. They're getting killed from 3-point range, giving up almost 48% from behind the arc. But Purdue transfer Matt Harms, the first game's an ankle injury. He's healthy now. He had 10 on Saturday. And my favorite transfer from Arizona, Alex Barcelo. He's been lighting up. 21 points a game, 11 of 15 from behind the arc, 6 boards, 3 assists. I'm so happy that he left Tucson and made a great move there.
So, Stalika, the other team I want to mention real briefly is the St. Mary's team. They looked awful against Memphis, but they did pick up 2 wins up in South Dakota with Northern Iowa and South Dakota State. Not big name teams, but quality of the radar progress this season.
Yeah, this is actually going to be a tough schedule by recent standards for St. Mary's. I mean, they really pick it up on the 16% outside of we're beating non-current Northern Iowa themselves a little disappointing, but still a nice bounce back win after getting pounded by a Memphis team that we weren't that high on during our previews.
And this upcoming schedule, notable games being Gonzaga's games, obviously. BYU's games also, USC game, Utah State. I think that's where that game is on or not. Who knows?
Ken, real quick, what happened in Nevada tonight?
When we talk about what happened in Nevada, it's like, oh, well, okay, what happened in Nevada? They're Mountain West Conference.
Share this with the audience.
Well, Pacific.
Because it was Pacific's fault entirely. Let's
Pacific and Nevada were scheduled for a 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern, 6 o'clock p.m. Pacific tip time tonight to play each other. And nobody had COVID, and they were going to play the game, except they had a little problem. Pacific thought it was at 7 p.m. Pacific start, not a 6 p.m. Pacific start. This is 2020 in a nutshell here. Teams not even knowing what time their games are scheduled to start because they're scheduling the games an hour before they're even playing them, I think. I don't know what's going on. But they had to push the start time back because of this. It was ridiculous.
It was East Tennessee State and someone. It was so many years ago. I forget. This isn't the time the team showed up and the referees weren't there because they
had to cancel the game because we had COVID and nobody was healthy this year.
You're going to see things like that happen. Yeah.
That did happen already. We're going to jump over to the SEC. Joby, we already see Auburn in red, and that is both because they're eligible and because that they are not going to win any more games the way they were playing. They got absolutely pounded by Central. It'll be an 8-point final. It's not this week. They lost Central Florida. We're not an 8-all tonight. But had a couple of these other teams here. I guess start with Kentucky though, and they're lost to Richmond.
It's not, and I think we need to dedicate time in the A10 for what the great job that Richmond did. This was Richmond going out and winning the game. It was more than Kentucky losing it. Kentucky is trying to put pieces together early in the season. Richmond, a experienced team, took advantage of that. Kentucky's going to be fine. Are they a top 10 team? I'm not so sure. We were sure at the beginning of the year if they were. But could you see them with that talent if it comes together, if the defense comes together a little better, because it didn't really show? There were some open shots for Richmond that might not be there in February and March. If they don't, would you be surprised if Kentucky were in the Final Four? I'm drunk. So I'm not going to press the panic button on the blue, but give Richmond credit. They went into Rupp, did the job. So I will give more credit to Richmond than taking it away from Kentucky.
It was two different halves, though, because if you look at the end of the first half, Richmond was actually down 4 points despite some pretty horrendous shooting. But once they started hitting their mark in the second half, especially for 5-6 minutes, they were.
And we've seen this from Kentucky before, Ted, like year after year. I mean, last year was sort of an extreme example of losing to Evansville, but you know, the year they got clobbered by Duke, and the year they sweated out Albany, I want to say it was, and the year they sweated out Greensboro. This is a team that is going 100 miles an hour in the second half of the season, and because of that, I think people forget in November of the following season that they never start off that way. This is typical Kentucky.
I agree. I'm talking about Arkansas. I guess the first place team, the only 2-0 team in the conference.
I do like those first place teams. They beat up on Mississippi Valley State. It was close at first, and then it was 80 by the end of the game.
Better than their 90-point loss last year for Mississippi Valley. But
they beat North Texas by only 15. The interior defense is amazing. Only allowed 37% from 2-point range. In December, schedule looking great. 6 games in a row. Then they had Auburn for the conference opener on December 30th. They have a nice mix of experience and youth. You got the freshman forward Moses Wright, 16 points in game number 1. The senior forward Dustin Smith, 18 points in game number 2. The X factor is the biggest factor. 7'3" center Connor Vanover. He was at Cal. He moves back to his home state of Arkansas. 14 points, 12 boards, 4 blocks a game. He is big and he's doing work on both ends of the court.
Rock, I just want to question about the SEC. We look at these results from the first week. Still not so good losses. 2 losses to Liberty, Mississippi State and South Carolina. I see the Mississippi State loss to Clemson, even the Kentucky lost to Richmond. But I don't see any notable wins at all. I think it was a real bad first week for the SEC.
Yeah, I think you'd have to call it a bad first week, on top of losing Tennessee shut down because Tennessee's COVID problem. That was a my play. You just got a lot of teams in the middle here that need to rise up, get in the tournament conversation. Arkansas could be one of those teams this year. Really interested to see how Alabama went early here. Every year there's one team we know last year it was Dayton. We use that additional to get what we call it Maui ball. Basically just bounce them into a great season. Alabama could definitely be that team in this year's tournament. They've got all the pieces. I think some great shooters, but they got to beat Stanford and they'll get North Carolina tomorrow. So we'll see.
There's the upper schedule as it was as of about 24 hours ago on the screen. Many of those games gone already. Vanderbilt, Kentucky's going to Florida. Oklahoma has been canceled as well. Florida's going to Buffalo. And we'll play 2 this week. So just don't even bother looking at upcoming schedule. It's just not happening. Let's maybe UCLA, I believe, not going to do the Pac-12.
I had a weird week.
There we go.
In my opinion, the win over Pepperdine is actually a nice little win. And they just lose to a better watching that game, San Diego State performed better than I expected. I think San Diego State is that large-worthy team that we were discussing. They are a good team. They're the best team in Mountain West, probably. But, man, got curb stomped in that game. I mean, it wasn't – I was actually surprised how strong San Diego State was just kind of pushing them around. And that surprised me. I'm not going to give up on UCLA. Like I've said over and over in this podcast, it's the first week, and I do think the Pepperdine a good win because Pepperdine's a decent team. However, the warning signs of the San Diego State game, you need to be on watch.
The UCLA are supposed to be playing tonight. Long Beach. That game is off. About an hour ago. Long Beach had some positive tests apparently. This is the season we have. Title USC also to a 2-0 start.
It almost was not so. They were down the Cal Baptist by 5 under 2 minutes late regulation. Somehow won in overtime and then easily beat Montana. They're dominating inside. They're actually shooting better from 2-point range, 62%, than the free throw line where they're only 58%. Huge week for them in Bubbleville. BYU Tuesday, UConn Thursday. See if they're for real. The Mobley brothers are looking fantastic. 6'10" sophomore Isaiah, averaging 10 points, 11 boards a game. His young brother, 7-foot freshman Evan, 16 points, 8 boards, 2 blocks per game. I'm glad that Isaiah was there to convince Evan to come, and it's working out just lovely for them.
Just a quick note there that Oregon State-Cal game, even though it game between 2 Pac-12 opponents, was not a conference game. That's not sure about the standings. That's different games. You're scheduled conference.
That's not conference games played in China, for example.
Colorado, I believe, plus somebody in also be in the conference game.
And I will note that there was one Pac-12 team this week who beat two March Madness cover teams because Texas Southern and Eastern Washington are in there.
Okay.
Arizona State had a pretty decent week, I think.
They did, David. They lost to the Villanova game, but they won their other game, and I thought they looked pretty good out there, actually.
Yeah, I thought they looked good
Island.
against Nova. Rhode Island, a tough little team, and then they blasted. I want to say it was Houston Baptist. I forget who it was,
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if you're going to ask, like, who was I the most impressed with, it was them. And how about Wazoo not stinking?
2 tournament.
Yeah.
They were pretty close games.
Yeah.
They almost stunk it up.
Rocco, I look at the upcoming schedule there. It looks like there's conference games this week. Are those official conference games?
They are, yeah. So we've got the Cougs and Bees on Wednesday. You got the Cats and Buffs on Wednesday as well. And then if Utah gets cleared, they're still in COVID lockdown. We will see Huskies and Utes on Thursday, but that game is very iffy. So the Huskies go ahead and schedule UC Riverside for tomorrow. They're just hanging out in Vegas looking for teams, and they found one for tomorrow. And they might stick around the Utah game. I see Pepperdine is also available this week. They had games with not that they're Pac-12, but Pac-12 team very much may schedule Pepperdine this week as both of their games were already canceled for the rest of the week. So keep an eye out for that. And I guess I was going to say, out here, it's going to be far apart. Washington way up there in Seattle. So you're better off going to a place like Vegas and hoping you're going to get a game. If on the East Coast, you got teams all over the place to steal games with. It's a lot tougher out here, and you see a lot more challenges.
Oh, gosh.
It's
How
like
about Mike taking to Twitter?
I mean,
On Twitter and said, hey, we need somebody. Like,
yeah, Mike had like 1,500 responses and about 100 tweets. You're not seeing that out here in the West.
David, we spoke about them earlier a little bit, but Houston had a very impressive week, not only with the win over what we thought was going to be a pretty good Boise State team, and then following it up with that great Texas Tech win. American.
I mean, this Houston team, I think, is protected security. Team definitely, think that now. On top of that, how high in the rankings is this team going to get? I mean, I don't know.
They are 10th in the nation in today's.
Yeah, and like when you go down their schedule, it's like there's not a single game on there that you think that you don't think they can win.
So Houston here for you.
Yeah. And normally we didn't do this. We don't do one on the first stuff. But So South Carolina, who I was big on, but who hasn't looked good so far. There's just Alabama.
good game.
Yeah, I mean, there's just nothing on there. I'm not saying they're going to win them all, but there's a single game on there that you wouldn't pick them to win. I don't think.
Even if you look in conference, Titel, after opening day, I thought Memphis was a team, but it kind of didn't go that well the rest of their trip out to South Dakota.
It did not. 3 games in 3 days in Sioux Falls. To be fair, when you're playing St. Mary's, Western Kentucky, and VCU, I don't expect you to go 3-0. It's a solid schedule. Good news, they're still good enough. They could be favored to win their next 12 in a row, so I don't think this is something that pushed the panic button. I do remember all of you laughing at me when I said this team was going to miss James Wiseman and Precious Achiuwa. I would like to point out that their 31% shooting from 2-point range is not even in the top 200 in the nation. So take that. The three-point shooting is also very inconsistent. The good news, Landers, Molly, and Boogie Ellis, 17 of 32 combined from behind the arc. Rest of the team, 5 of 27. Stop shooting it. Pass it to those two guys. The other good news, they've not played a single senior yet, so the future is very bright for this team.
Yeah. Titel, I will say this. I don't think they're going to miss one any more than they did last year.
Yeah. I think they had it for 3 games.
They had 62 minutes.
62 minutes. I mean, it's America at this point. I mean, we'll see as
You times. Oh, never mind.
never mind. You keep wrong tonight, but again, it was Auburn.
Yeah, it was.
Sleeka, there's the upcoming schedule, at least on paper. Again, we don't know if it's going to get played, not going to get played. SMU could be a good game if it gets played. Your Xavier Cincinnati game if it played.
And then there's a little matter of Cincinnati, Temple, and Wichita haven't actually played yet, but that's going to change on that day, at least as far as Wichita State, Cincinnati. We think.
Who knows? Again, all the still with the. We talked about a little. I'm sorry, Rich.
It's like an island.
Yeah, Rich, you're right.
Except
Rich team.
They whooped the Don last night.
It had an R tonight. I got the mix up.
Yeah.
There we go. Richmond.
Yeah, so Richmond, I saw us on before the show talking about Richmond, and they had the injury to Nick Sherrod, the ACL tear, that was a bit of a setback during the preseason, but I think they proved in this Kentucky game that they're resilient, they're experienced. I saw an interview today during some of the Maui coverage with Coach Mooney, talking a lot about how this is a tough routine that they've had just in terms of their, the way they deal with entity in these tough moments. You saw Kentucky trying to battle back, and obviously Kentucky was more superior NBA level talent, but Richmond being the veteran, experienced bunch that had been through the war together, really taking that next step. And we talked about it in the preseason A10 show together that, I put back last February 1st, Richmond's only lost one time. And so their level is about as high as you can get for their college basketball, and a lot of fun to watch. And they've got a great non-conference schedule coming out too, so we're going to see some more fun spider battles ahead.
Well, Richmond, for all that they did, Joby, you can't overlook what St. Louis did this week as well. They looked just good, didn't they?
Yeah, on this panel's consensus pick for the A-10 was St. Louis.
Not unanimous, just consensus.
Yeah,
exactly.
But I'll admit that St. Louis, but I'm not feeling awful with my pick right now, given that they pretty much they took it, did what they had to do. St. Louis tournament. Not saying Richmond. We could be talking, like I mentioned earlier, could be the sky's the limit with that Kentucky win and run. But St. Louis, don't sleep on them. I think they have that level to be, solidly in the tournament, not scraping in, and the LSU win, because LSU is likely to be in the discussion as well. I think that will place St. Louis in a good spot. They're already on people's radar, to use our term, and St. Louis Richmond's going to be a fun duel for the title here in the A10, without a doubt.
Yeah. Richmond, by the way, came in number 19 in the AP poll this week. St. Louis just missed the top 25 and 28th overall. Titel, how would you make at the top of the A10 here? Rhode Island, one of the best 1-2 teams I think at this point.
Yeah, I think so. Don, there's some American teams who even started their schedule. Rhode Island has 4 games under their belt in 5 days in Bubbleville. I think that's going to pay some big dividends when you play a team that's literally not been a competitive game since last March. Schedule doesn't get any easier. Seton Hall Wednesday, BC on Friday for a rematch of their 5-point loss to these on Thanksgiving. Good news, they have 90 rest after that. Bad news, they wrap the trip to a very interesting team. Each so far on the schedule. A tiny point guard, Fats Russell, doing great, 18 points a game. And his supporting cast is not just a bunch of like role players. He's got power 5 transfers all over the place. Mitchell Henson from Maryland, Jalen Suggs from Syracuse, Antoine Walker from Georgetown. This is power conference team because they have guys from power conference teams.
Yeah. Again, you look at the upcoming games here, Chad. Before we get to that,
Probably not going to happen anyhow.
Yeah.
Although the Cambridge game is a little interesting on there.
Yeah. The A10, that's always been, I think, a league that we all kind of like. It's a basketball-centric league, probably not even arguably the best one outside of the Big East. But you might remember when we had Chris Reinert on, we talked about how it's almost like there's 2 different Atlantic 10s. I would like to say, when you look at what Fordham has done, if they keep doing what they're doing, I think this league is going to be a lot better.
I mean, hey, 5 seasons of Fordham, who could have expected that? No.
We don't have that much yet. Was there any coming games we wanted to touch on?
Well, we can talk about their opener against UCLA, where even though they didn't have the pack crowd that you would normally get at the A-Moss, they still got out to a big lead early on against UCLA, carried it over to a win against UC Irvine a couple days later. So not quite the same pace last year, but still going to be contender, at least as far as the Mountain West.
And I think that, when we looked at the Mountain West, the big question, at least my big question heading into the season, Rocco, let me answer this, was, San Diego State, we thought was going to be good, but was there a second team? We thought maybe Boise, and they really didn't look very good this week, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still going to hold out judgment on them. They had to go down to Houston, who's obviously an elite team. Hard to just chalk them up as not ready to make the leap in a game like that. But Boise still missing the pieces that appeared in that game. They weren't too competitive, as you said. I do think Nevada had a nice gutsy win at Nebraska, albeit they're one of the bottom Big Ten teams. Nebraska did look amazing in their first game. I think they won by like 60 points, and then Nevada came in and shut them down. So maybe they're a team ready to jump up a little bit. At least like outside of UB, who had the chance to prove themselves, who both were pretty disappointing overall.
So it was a team that I thought might be putting an absolutely pathetic losing home to Tennessee before getting his Carolina. But let's go back to Nevada for a second, though. Title, I think you had a few comments on them as well.
Yes, Rocco did not steal all my thunder. They did start 2-0. The win in Nebraska, I agree, it was gutsy. They were down by 10 with less than 10 minutes left and came back on the road to beat the Huskers. Interior defense amazing, allowing only 35% shooting inside the arc. Very tough week ahead. If they get their clocks right, they're playing Pacific as we speak. Then they welcome San Francisco to town on Wednesday. And they're getting it done with a couple of transfers. Grant Sherfield from Wichita State, 16 points, 5 assists a game. Desmond Cambridge from Brown, 13 points a game. This team is for real, I think.
Yes, because again, my feeling so far has been San Diego State number 1 and the rest of the league number 2. But
Utah State actually did a pretty good bubble edition with VCU and with VCU beating Northern Iowa. But what really needed to happen for this conference was for Utah State to rise above and go at least 2-1, not 1-2, and that was. Yeah, that might be the story of this conference because they had chances but couldn't quite do it. But San Diego State took care of their business just as we thought they might.
And they're going to clean up this league.
I think you're right.
Yeah, and you see the upcoming schedule here. I believe, I have to confirm this, but with conference games already starting this week, though, but I believe we're going to go State games for this week already on there and be scheduled later this season, which is what we're going to this year.
Yeah, you see San Francisco, they actually scrapped the Sunday game. They are going to stick with the Wednesday game.
Okay, so just one game there. San Francisco, Nevada.
San Francisco's going to have to be road warriors given all the limitations right now. And San Francisco, I do exactly what I did in Belleville, as many games in as I can where I can get them. You're not going to be able to host much in the Bay Area for quite a while.
They're going to have bigger limitations for Santa Clara and Stanford because they're actually part of Santa Clara County where they've suspended.
Yes, Santa Clara. I truly believe that will move up. And Rocco would know better than me on the local. I'd be shocked if the entire Bay Area does not follow suit. I'd be shocked. But I'll defer to Rocco. Who knows?
Yeah, so Santa Clara is like the 16th ranked county in controlling COVID, which is by far the worst in the Bay Area. So they're getting locked down quicker. San Francisco County and the county here where Oakland and St. Mary's is doing much better. So I think if they keep it on a county basis, be okay for a little bit. But if they go statewide, Alameda County, yeah. So if they go statewide, then everybody's got their hands tied. But nothing yet.
A couple quick updates here. Minnesota did get their second win over Loyola and Marymount tonight while we were recording this. While Seton Hall is struggling with Iona at home, so who knows about this season. But on that note, I do want to go through each of us for any other final thoughts or any other thing you want to bring up here regarding everything we've seen so far and what we may or may not see for the next week. And Sleek, let me start with you.
Puppet likes to talk about Kentucky struggling at the beginning of the season, but I think we can trace this nice little tradition under Calipari going back to a little-known game against Miami of Ohio back around, I want to say 2009, 2010, when Kentucky had John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins, and at least 2 or 3 other first-round draft picks. That was what led to a legendary Charlie Cole's post-game rant when someone had asked him how the game got away from Miami.
Oh, do you have the rant?
You have to look up the video.
Oh, okay. You're not going to – it is glorious. Yeah, just Google Charlie Cole's UK. It is great.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the great rants of all time, actually. Joby.
Really just following up what we discussed earlier. As a note to all who are watching, the J&G will be up and running in short order, probably the next 24 to 48 hours, and hopefully we'll be able to do relative constant updates on it, and you'll be able to see where teams are projected at such an early stage into the field. And it's kind of fun to see the resume-based components of, hey, this team is doing really good. I remember a few years ago, Wagner was a 1 seed after week 1. So
Yeah.
it's a lot.
Yeah. Well, if San Francisco hadn't lost to Lowell,
Oh my
maybe
God,
they'd be up there. Rocco.
Yeah, just a couple final thoughts. So I think one team that impressed me, we didn't really focus on too much out of the A10, just because there was a lot to talk about in that league, is VCU. They had that Tennessee event canceled, and overnight, within hours, they became a replacement team to go to the Crossover Classic, got on a plane and went to South Dakota. I think they had 48 hours notice. They had no real time to prepare, just showed up and started playing basketball. They ended up whooping Utah State in the first game. They gave West Virginia a respectable game. And then I was very impressed in their win over Memphis. They've got a freshman point guard that we didn't even really discuss at all in the preseason show, Ace Baldwin Jr. He had 6 assists, and 7 assists in those 3 games, and just played very, very strong for a freshman in all 3 of those games, which were all tight games at different points. So anyway, VCU, I think, exceeded all of our expectations, at least here in the first week. Another thought I had was UCLA and Providence. Obviously, disappointing starts, what we saw from Providence today and UCLA last week. But keep in mind, Cronin and Cooley last year brought both of these teams to the hottest teams in the country during conference play. There's going to be teams like this that have slow starts that will get hot later. It's important we don't write them off too soon, especially the ones with great coaches like those two. And then the last observation I had over the first week was teams are coming in and out of games, because they've either come out of a lockdown or they're going into a lockdown. And some of them, it's their first game and they're going against a team that's like their third or fourth. Like, tonight we had Duquesne against Little Rock, for example. Those games, I think the teams that have already played a few have a huge advantage. Where Duquesne just got thoroughly outplayed by Little Rock in that example. I've seen that on a few occasions. We're going to continue to see that as teams like St. Bonaventure, et cetera, don't even start their season until another week from now. Just something to pay attention to as we go forward.
Well, and that reminds me, Rocco, actually, we didn't discuss it, but Syracuse had a real grinder against Bryant, and they were just coming right out of a break because of COVID on the Orange. And then Jim Boeheim continued. They went on Twitter and said we shouldn't have had to play this game because we were coming right. Well, went out of the press conference, I believe. It said we shouldn't have to play this game. We didn't have enough time to prepare. That's why we almost lost the game. To which Bryant's head coach responded on Twitter and said, by the way, we offered them a chance to cancel the game, and Syracuse insisted they go ahead. So, Jim Boeheim for you.
Right.
Titel.
Just want to give a quick shout out to the class of 21 for the College Basketball Hall of Fame that was announced on Sunday. A couple of coaches who did things very differently. Rick Byrd, who went to Belmont and stayed there for about a half century. Tom Penders, who went to like 10 different schools for about 5 years each. They both won a ton of games. 6 players, Len Bias, whose pro career was cut short before it started. Hersey Hawkins, one of the greatest scorers in college basketball history. David Greenwood, Jim Jackson, Antoine Jameson, and one of my personal favorites, Kansas Star and Boston Celtics Finals MVP, Paul Pierce. Congrats to all of them. They're all very worthy.
Yes, congrats to all of them, definitely. And Joby, I went to you already, didn't I?
Yes.
Okay, I did. All right, just making certain. I got a little distracted there. So I guess
is so memorable.
I guess David, you're the only one left.
Okay, well, I just kind of wanted to start off with how surprised, pleasantly surprised I've been with the quality of play. Practices have been messed up. There's been, going back to September, where you didn't have all your players, you didn't know who you were going to have in practice from day to day. There were no exhibition games. No one really knew what the schedule was going to be. Sometimes you learn what your schedule is 24 hours before the game, but the quality of play has not suffered. Whereas, in watching football, you're like, a lot of the games, this is just ugly football. We haven't seen ugly basketball, at least not more than what we normally see in November. At least I don't think. It's been really enjoyable, despite not having the fans there and despite the limited and preparation and the craziness that is the season. Anyway, that's been interesting. But anyway, that was first. Second, are you guys ready for a new segment here? Are we ready for this, Chad?
And that's the show for. Okay, David, you want to do a new segment? Do a new segment.
Oh, wait a minute. How do I? You've disabled the screen sharing, Chad.
I don't know how to reactivate that.
How am I supposed to do this new segment, Chad?
I have no idea.
If I can't see the screen.
Try it now.
Okay, try it now. Okay, there it is. There it is. Okay. So anyway, this is going to be David's hot take. We're going to close the show with this. It just dawned on me that I'm a genius and I need to share my wisdom.
Okay, I don't see anything though, David. But
if each HoopsHD report, you'll see it here in a second. So this is the first ever of David's hot take. Let's get it on the screen there. And yeah, there it is. And you see it's on Twitter there. I've hashtag David's hot take at HoopsHD. And this week, Gonzaga will make the NCAA tournament. There it is. It's been tweeted out. That's this week's hot take.
Well, thank you, David. Gonzaga will make the NCAA tournament. Everybody, if they don't make it, then we can blame David.
Well, isn't that insightful? I mean,
I guess it is, David. Yes.
That's not what you were looking for.
Yes. Thank you, David. Why do we let him on the show? I want to thank everybody for joining us. We will be back. Wednesday night. We're recording our first Under the Radar podcast of the season. We'll be back next Monday with another HoopsHD report and doing the same thing again until we have a national champion, or as we learned last year, until the season gets shut down. Either way, but. On behalf of Joby Fortson, David Griggs, John Titel, Rocco Miller, and John Stalika, I'm Chad Sherwood. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you again real soon.